It is hard to imagine someone abandoning their child, but it is happening. Georgia's Department of Family and Children's Services says right now there are about 500 children in its care, abandoned by their parents, with the hope that this drastic decision would somehow lead to them finally getting access to mental and behavioral health care. 3 years ago, 11 Alive News Investigates exposed this problem with our series, Keeping. And lawmakers led by the late House Speaker David Ralston passed HB 1013, the Mental Health Parity Act. But this week, lawmakers are meeting again, talking with those who work directly with these children about the gaps in care that still exist. It was December 2019 when a mom said enough. She came here to Grady with her 14-year-old son who had Down syndrome, and she walked away. I mean, like, got in her car and drove away without any clue what was going to happen to him next.
We saw the news and our hearts broke, and we had to come and support her.
As if that weren't bad enough, after police arrested her for abandoning an innocent, helpless child, a group of other moms came together to defend her.
I did the same thing she did some years ago.
As a mom, my honest reaction was, "You did what?" Turns out that year, more than 1,400 children in Georgia ended up in state custody, not because of abuse or neglect, but because the parents couldn't cope or find help for their kids' behavior. And that's when I knew I had to find out why. So I made phone calls, sent emails and open records requests, and in my research, I met Kayleigh, just one of the hundreds of kids abandoned every year. Kayleigh loves to sing. It took a few moments for her to warm up to the idea of singing for me.
You ain't got no one to hold you, you ain't got no one to care.
But once she started, she seemed almost impossible to stop. I didn't want her to stop. She seemed happy. Music is an important part of Kayleigh's life.
You're home with me, right where you belong.
Are you right where you belong, Kayleigh?
Yeah.
Did you have any idea when she was born that there were going to be mental or physical challenges?
She would projectile vomit across the room, and just kind of, sometimes she would like seize in my arms and kind of her eyes would roll back. This is you right before your first brain surgery.
Oh yeah, girl.
If Kayleigh's life were a song,
Don't do what?
the sheet music would be filled with diagnoses instead of notes. Intellectual disability, mitochondrial disorder, leaky gut, oppositional defiant disorder, ADHD, and PTSD. And those seizures, doctors believe they were caused by a Chiari malformation,
Which in layman's terms is like the brain has grown too big for the skull.
Surgery addressed the physical deformity, but not the developmental delays and behavioral problems.
She can't really count money. She could not tell time on a standard clock.
It also means she's impulsive, has fits of aggression, and a habit of running away.
There was a brief period where it was very, very scary in our house. You know, the damage to the home and, you know, throwing things. My child will get out of a moving car on I-20 and run across that freeway.
Early on, the stress and focus on Kayleigh's needs ended Christina's marriage.
Me and my dad.
At the beach.
That me and my daddy.
Constant calls to the school and doctor's appointments ended her career. In 2019, they lost their home.
Why you wanna fight?
At 16, Kayleigh just wanted the song to end, intentionally overdosing on 2 medications.
You ain't never gonna fight.
It was then in desperation to get Kayleigh better access to treatment, Christina gave up custody of her daughter.
Never did I want my child to leave my home. I just wanted help. I felt like I failed her. I remember I couldn't get out of bed for a week. It was
Dealing with a child with these issues is exhausting.
Tom Rawlings, the director of Georgia's Division of Family and Children's Services, says when it comes to abandonment, there's really 2 groups.
There's this, one group, the little ones.
First are the parents who just can't cope. Last year, that made up about 5% of the children that came into DFAC's custody. They are usually babies or young children with parents who struggle with severe substance abuse or mental health issues. Then there are children like Kayleigh. That's another 12%.
They have tried and tried and tried to get help for the child, and they just cannot do it anymore. They want to care for their child, but what if their own child is perhaps a danger to other children in the home?
What are the gaps? As part of a data fellowship with the USC Annenberg Center for Health Journalism, we accessed information on all of these children to learn about their stories, their songs, why they came into care, and the costs associated.
In any given year, our agency spends about $40–50 million.
Do you remember the time when you were away from your mom?
No.
When you were at the group home?
No.
You don't remember it?
No.
I think you remember.
No.
You just don't want to talk about it.
No, I don't. No, I don't, Mama. No. 'Cause I'm all human.
Kayleigh, now 19, is back at home with her mother, but her struggles remain the same. As Kayleigh sings, Christina writes, candidly sharing their experiences on Facebook. The title to this track, Keeping Kayleigh.
Just stay with me. Please stay with me.
At first, it was about finding services and support to keep Kayleigh at home. Now, Christina wants to keep Kayleigh alive.
And I received a phone call from an older woman who had said, we've been keeping Kayleigh here, and she's very sick. She's been, beaten and raped, and we believe she's been in trafficking. Can you come get her?
The last time Kayleigh ran away, Christina found her here at a Motel 6 off Candler Road, once again vomiting and malnourished. There is certainly tragedy in the lyrics of Kayleigh's life, but listen close and you'll hear something else.
You gotta live a little.
I never imagined we'd be sitting where we are today.
Cry a little.
I just don't want my child to die.
And that's your poor heart break a little.
When it really is that serious.
That's the story of, that's the glory of love.
Keeping Kayleigh is just the beginning of a series of reports we plan to do this year on why these children are abandoned and what we have to change if we hope to stop it. Child welfare is supposed to be the state agency that helps abused and neglected children. But the reveal found more than 1,000 children abandoned to the state last year simply because their parents didn't know what else to do. Parents trying to keep children like Bradley.
I miss him so much, but he requires more than what I can offer him as just a mom.
You kind of need a motion sickness pill to carry a Zoom conversation with April Bonacorsi. She literally has her hands full with Ava.
I'm sorry, the baby spit up all over
You're
me.
fine. And her son, Aiden. There's also her 14-year-old son, Bradley. You don't see him, but he's there.
Always in my heart. Talk about him every day. Everything I do, I think about Bradley. And the guilt.
She says with laughter.
I can't cry 24/7.
Guilt because Bradley is living at a residential treatment facility.
I want my shoes off.
You know how to take your shoes off, baby?
While her son Aiden can communicate what he wants and pout when he doesn't get it,
Be a big boy.
Bradley is nonverbal and has autism. Since he can't use words to communicate his feelings, he often speaks through aggression.
Stop.
If you find this video tough to watch, imagine living it.
He would wrap his whole body around your legs and bite you, and it would be to where, like, for a year I had like a piece of flesh that was just misshapen on my leg. He's very, very strong.
It's children like Bradley that are at risk of being abandoned to the state's child welfare system. About 40% who come into care this way are teens. Of those with a listed diagnosis, 58% have severe behavioral or mental health challenges. 40% have a developmental disability, and many come into care with all of these things. But what do you think we need to do differently to keep these children from being abandoned?
The systems aren't talking to each other.
It's more putting out her fires.
I asked the same question of more than 24 parents and child welfare organizations.
There's no care coordination system.
So it's kind of like everything needs to fit in this box.
There was always a barrier. It was always some kind of barrier.
They all mention the same problems. There are potentially 4 different state agencies involved in providing care, and there is little to no case management looking at the big picture. And that primary diagnosis, like bipolar or autism, tends to box children in to the type of care they can access.
The analogy I would say is if you need vegetables, getting more hamburger isn't really going to help. And sometimes parents honestly deal with what they can get rather than what they need.
Devin Orlin and Joe Sarah work for the Georgia Advocacy Office, a nonprofit that helps parents fight for what their child needs. The state's guide to helping parents openly admits getting help can be a long and difficult process.
Once a child qualifies for Medicaid, that comes with certain commitments. You're legally entitled to a case manager. You're legally entitled to supports within the home. And you're legally entitled to not have to fight, scrap, and go broke doing it.
Yet April says every service is a fight.
Calm down.
When she tried to get Bradley behavioral therapy, she ended up on a waiting list. And when his behavior got too bad to ignore, his insurance sent him to a treatment facility in South Carolina, 4 hours away from home.
That I thought, okay, it's going to be a couple months, and then he'll come back and we'll have a plan. 2 years later. Do you have any of that? No, I don't.
Now, after 2 years, Bradley's insurance says this level of care is no longer a medical necessity.
I know.
The problem, they still can't find a local therapist that will work with Bradley's aggression.
At discharge, services in the community and in the home must be identified, approved, and ready to go.
But Bradley's insurance didn't want to wait. April felt she was being forced to pit the safety of her children against each other. And when she pushed back, she says her insurance offered a solution.
Well, you can always give up partial custody to DFACS, and then he'll get the resources that he needs.
You heard right. An insurance company, knowing how all these claims get shuffled, suggesting to a mom that she abandon her child in order to get him care. And April says that is the problem, not Bradley's aggression. Services should be the same, if not better, while in her custody, and she should be able to find them around where she lives.
You better leave your brother alone. God dang it, Bradley, get off of me.
But in that moment of exhaustion, parents like April do wonder, would their child be better off?
You know, your mental health will decline. It's just a lot.
For April, the answer is no. She's been able to fight for a little more time to make arrangements, but says whether hugging her leg in the kitchen,
He's got the cutest little face, so I was like, well, boop.
or biting it in a fit of rage, she wants Bradley in the family photos. Because without him, the house just feels empty.
Honestly, it's not really the house, it's me. I feel empty without my child. Sorry, I'm gonna cry. I feel empty without him. It's just how I feel on the inside, that I'm missing a huge piece.
This story was told as part of the 2020 Data Fellowship with the USC Annenberg Center for Health Journalism. It was 8 a.m. when I arrived with a bag full of cameras. Now, where do you generally sit? To capture a typical day in Jalen's life.
Great job.
His mom wanted us to see firsthand what's involved in raising a nonverbal child with autism.
A lot of jumping, breaking of furniture.
His actions may not make sense to you. He doesn't like clothes, his movements are often abrupt, and he can be loud.
He gets up like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes he screams. Sometimes he tries to open my door and just kind of get my attention.
While Maria wants more for her son, she remembers a few years back when he started to intentionally physically injure himself. There was no way, as a single working mom, she could watch him 24 hours a day.
I said, if you guys don't help him, I'm at the part right now where he's just going to get dropped off at Children's. And I meant it. Did I want to do it? No. I felt like it was the only way I could get some help for him.
Dropped off means abandoned. To force the state to pay attention to their needs. Even after you made that desperate call for help,
yeah.
Did you get it?
No.
This is a good time to talk about EPSDT.
And that stands for Early Periodic Screening, Diagnostic, and Treatment.
It's a lot of words, but children like Jalen really need us to understand them. Because at its core, EPSDT means
kids are entitled to whatever Medicaid service they need that's medically necessary.
Medically necessary. Remember that term because we're going to come back to that in a moment.
It's not enough to say, give the list of providers with some phone numbers, call 50 and see what you get.
Yet Maria says that is exactly what she has experienced. Does that mean we're breaking the law, the state of Georgia?
I believe it does.
And who's accountable for that?
So the state Medicaid agency is the Department of Community Health.
The problem, there are really no consequences when states fail to meet the needs outside of a lawsuit.
Children with more complicated diagnoses or multiple diagnoses fall in what I call the Grand Canyon of service gaps.
The state knows needs are not being met. It is a state agency that wrote this 9-page memo outlining some of the problems. And in the past 2 years, child advocates, attorneys, and behavioral health providers have also written letters to DCH listing specific steps that could help, calling the current system incoherent.
I think human instinct sometimes has us when someone suggests a new, bold idea to go, is that possible?
Erica Fenner-Sitkoff is the executive director of Voices for Georgia's Children.
We advance laws, policies, and actions that improve the lives of children.
Right now, Voices is studying denials, why families with high-need children on Medicaid are being told no. Remember EPSDT and that mandate to provide what's medically necessary?
As much as we have definitions for what's medically necessary, there is a human component to this. There are people deciding that.
Fenner-Sitkoff says that means who gets what is often inconsistent. Whether those denials are by private insurance or Medicaid, it's often the taxpayers that foot the bill. DFAC says it spent more than $72 million to pick up the tab on treatments that had been denied. Now, not all of those children had been abandoned, but they do represent the same group. Dually diagnosed teenagers with severe mental health and developmental disabilities.
The sad part about this is if I die tomorrow, he's gonna get help because I'm dead. Jay?
Parents like Maria say the research needs to go even further to make sure children that do qualify for services actually get them. Once approved, she tried to get Jalen behavioral therapy to help him find better ways to communicate. But she couldn't juggle the appointments with her job. Now that she's working from home, therapists say at 17, he's too old.
And that really broke my heart because
do you feel like if you could have gotten him into some of these things sooner?
Yes.
There was always a barrier.
There was always a barrier.
Simple habits like rocking and jumping have destroyed several beds. The stair rail is busted, and this couch?
Like right now, we don't have a couch. Like literally, we do not have a couch right
The
now.
couch that was there. When
It's gone.
It's gone. Gone, not from one jump, but a repetition of little jumps each day, every day. A pattern of walking in and out of rooms, turning on and off the lights. Disrupted sleep and desperate attempts to be understood. Without resources to break the cycle, Jalen and his mom will live trapped in this loop.
I love my son. I love him so much, but it's like, am I the best thing for him? Some days I don't feel that way. Like, what is he learning from me? How am I helping him? Like, what can I do? Like, I feel helpless. Like, I'm his advocate, and I feel helpless.
Football. The rush of the run.
I like football.
The roar of the crowd when a touchdown is made. While we all celebrate the one holding the ball, it takes a team to walk away with the win. So it is in the game of life. Trey says with this team, he's ready. Do you think that these things would have happened had it not been for this type of program?
Probably no.
That's Trey with his foster mom, Anne-Marie Small. The program we're talking about is Therapeutic Foster Care, or TFC.
It was a whole total different ball game.
Trey came into DFAC's custody when he was 5.
My teacher called DFACs and told her that my arm was burnt.
Since then, he has lived with relatives, a foster family, and in a group home. But between the abuse, bouncing around, and a mild intellectual disability, Trey didn't just need housing and love, he needed behavioral therapy.
So today we're going to talk about our anger warning signs.
Here, he gets both and more, because TFC, when done right, starts with a pretty basic question that doesn't seem to get asked often in our healthcare system. What does this child need? Everyone's together.
Everyone's coming to the home. At least 4 or 5 workers come in. We sit around the table.
And that's my dad that passed away.
Those in therapeutic foster care are generally teenagers with complicated diagnoses.
They may have autism and behavior issues, and also have mental health issues.
Sally Buchanan, the founder of Creative Community Services, says training is given to both the foster and biological parents if the plan is for the child to go back home.
You can't just say, here's your kiddo back. Now you should be able to take care of this child. That's not going to happen.
You've given them no new tools.
No new tools.
So you're just going to repeat the cycle. In the past 5 years, half of the children abandoned to the state's child welfare system were placed more than once. An abandoned 10-year-old diagnosed bipolar moved around 3 more times because either the caregiver couldn't cope or her behaviors were too much to manage. How important is that support team?
I don't think this program could succeed without them.
But the program is limited. Creative Community Services can only handle about 77 teenagers in state custody each year.
We probably get 4 referrals a week of kids that they are living in hotels, and it's because no one can serve them, but we don't have the resources to serve them.
You heard right, hotels with 24/7 staff supervision. In 2019, DFACs paid to hotel more than 600 children. The cost? Roughly $1,400 a day. That is nearly 4 times as expensive as a residential treatment facility and 5 times more expensive than TFC.
Money does not solve things. What solves things is the right amount of money plus the right service at the right time.
Georgia isn't alone. According to a national study, 2/3 of states have written a law or regulation to prohibit children from being abandoned for medical care. That's why Colorado is taking a different approach.
So my name is Stacy Davis, and I'm the program manager for the Children and Youth Mental Health Treatment Act.
Colorado lawmakers created a fund to help under and uninsured children access mental health services.
Families lacked the ability to pay out of pocket for these needed services, and the result was they were turning to child welfare.
In 2020, the program's annual report says caseworkers helped 185 children find and pay for mental health services. Of those discharged, 60% were no longer at imminent risk of being abandoned.
The number is small, but the impact, I hope, is huge.
Other states are using voluntary placements, basically access to intensive behavioral and mental health services without requiring a parent to give up custody.
This one was...
TFC is one example. This year, Georgia lawmakers did approve funding to expand TFC for children in state custody. But the former director of DFACS hopes they'll also use it to help children at risk of being abandoned.
If you have a cut, you may go to the urgent care, or you may just need a Band-Aid. We have been working to build, and still have a lot of work to do, to build a mental health system that has that range of options the way we do for physical health.
What's one thing for you?
While expansion of the program is a positive step, it is still an extreme option and raises the question, why? Why does a child have to leave their home to get good case management and care, to get that team?
Probably.
Trey will never go back to live with his mom, but he is learning how to live independently. He has a job at McDonald's.
Clean the lobby and take out trash.
It's $25.
He is learning how to manage money and his anger. What do you think is the difference?
I get more help that I needed.
His team has taught him how to catch the ball. Now he is ready for his touchdown. This is the game of life. 2 parents up front and some cute little pegs that will eventually choose college or career. The game never mentions the children with disabilities that may need care forever. In this car, it is Christina and her daughter Kayleigh, because pretty early on, Dad got out, leaving one parent, one peg to pay the rent and drive. Kayleigh's disability qualified her for Medicaid regardless of income. She got surgery for a birth defect, therapy for developmental delays, and special accommodations at school. But as she grew into a teen with multiple diagnoses, Georgia's Medicaid plan had a tough time keeping up.
And if you don't have the evaluation that says exactly what it needs to say to access that care, you're not going to get it. And that just depends on who you see and what their mood is that day.
When Kayleigh's behaviors got out of control, she received medication instead of tools to teach her new ways to cope. The roadblock? Georgia traditionally only covers the service for children with autism. Kayleigh doesn't have autism, or at least not on paper. Her mom has tried twice to get her tested. She is still on the waiting list. Yet another roadblock. The barriers in the system mean barriers to success. Suicide attempts.
She was asphyxiating, and so I just picked her up and I dumped her in the shower, turned on the cold water, called the ambulance.
Kayleigh, unable to deal with her emotions, kept running away, ending up in jail, homeless, or even trafficked by strangers for sex. Her mom asked for help with supervision, but she couldn't get that either. Kayleigh's intellectual disability wasn't severe enough, and those medical problems never really went away.
I don't feel like my daughter's ever been properly, truly evaluated. It's more putting out her fires that she's produced more than looking at her from a ground level.
Christina wants a caseworker who can change that, but all she's found are dead ends. Christina never thought she'd retire a millionaire, but she desperately wants to get her daughter back on the road in this game called life.
You gonna hurt yourself.
Stand up.
Can you get your hands off
No,
me?
stand up.
I don't like this
Stand up.
touching me, bro.
All right, stand up there.
You can learn a lot by watching an officer's body camera video. That is Kayleigh refusing to leave a gas station parking lot. How was jail?
And it was not good.
You need any help?
But knowing she does not want to go to jail, doesn't seem to stop her behavior. She has spent time in 3 county jails in 2 years for offenses related to disorderly conduct.
When I'm mad, I'm not gonna be quiet. You're not gonna silence me.
Kayleigh has autism, developmental disabilities, and behavioral problems due to a lifetime of trauma. The world's rules on how to act don't come naturally. And her mom says until now, many of the therapies that could have helped have been denied by Medicaid.
It's truly unfair for these children not to be able to access services that they need.
Child welfare advocates say they see it over and over again.
The criminal justice system. We see that a lot with children who are in juvenile justice because they're not getting the supports that they need.
The Department of Juvenile Justice says it's treating 60% of the children in custody for some type of mental health disorder. The top diagnoses, PTSD and ADHD, almost identical to the top diagnoses we found in the children abandoned to state custody.
Okay, I can get it myself.
But when Kayleigh's outbursts started leading to arrests, she was too old for DJJ.
Can you tell me what's going on?
And that's why we were able to obtain these. Body camera video showing 2 different calls to Newton County's 911 with 2 very different outcomes. We timed each response.
Mentally problem? I think that's what it might be.
In this incident last year, the officer seemed at a loss when Kayleigh refused to answer her questions.
Where are you from? None of your damn business.
She even pushed her mom away.
Just stop. And I'm gonna need you to get your hands on my face.
She begged everyone to stop touching her.
Don't touch me, bro.
The body camera clips are broken, but the timestamp indicates that within 10 minutes of the officer's arrival, Kayleigh was in handcuffs.
You got it on her?
I don't want to take you. I want to talk to you. I don't know what's going on.
Let's reset the clock and compare that to this response a year later. Kayleigh has run away in the middle of the night, upset about the anniversary of her father's death.
I don't have my dad, so I don't give a if I die. Now please leave me the alone.
In this case, Newton County Corporal Jathan Nagroski arrived on scene with 2 other officers, all with crisis intervention training.
Most times when they're talking, they're telling you things that will trigger them or, may escalate the situation. So you really have to pick up on that. 37, can you kill those lights?
Triggers like bright lights of a car or getting too close.
Get away from me!
CIT is an intense week-long course for officers that, on this night, help Kayleigh calm down, allowing her to think about her actions.
I don't want to hurt anybody.
You're okay, Kayleigh.
No, I'm trying to fight my impulse because I'm trying to run.
And finally accept her emotions. De-escalation took longer. Corporal Nagroski calmly tried to connect with Kayleigh for 22 minutes. But overall, it saved time and trauma.
And it's not a stop.
There was no drive to the jail, no charges to clog our courts. Was this a situation where she needed to be arrested?
So not everybody with mental health needs to be arrested.
In each case, Kayleigh's tears show that for children with complicated mental and behavioral needs, time behind bars won't change their struggle.
Have you reached out to NAMI?
Deputy Nagroski says they're given a list of resources to share with families. Because CIT isn't just about keeping those experiencing a crisis out of jail.
When it goes right and everybody leaves and everybody's safe and that information's passed along, it does feel good.
But sometimes you can't help but worry or wonder.
You always wonder, because you never know.
Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know anymore.
The next time they have an episode, is it going to go the same way?
Can I sing a song for you?
I have learned when Kayleigh sings, it is worth taking the time to listen.
Dirty laundry, dirty laundry.
This time it's a song by Kelly Rowland.
She writes about how she was abused and nobody knew it.
I asked Kayleigh to tell me about her own abuse, her own dirty laundry.
When you make pain look this good, it never wears out. Dirty laundry, this dirty laundry.
The story had a familiar start. Kayleigh ran away. She had done it several times before. When you leave, do you ever have a place you're heading to, or do you just go?
I just go sometimes. I just black out and I don't remember anything.
Do you ever worry about what could happen to you when you go?
Yes, but at the same time, sometimes when I'm irritated, I don't care.
You just have to go.
Just have to go. I was at Taco Bell, and one of my best friends I seen her ex there. Like, can I come stay with you?
She had no idea the invitation came with a catch.
She wanted me to sell my body. That way that her kids would have a place to, a roof over their head.
Sex for money. The woman found the clients and kept the money. She did the work.
She made me feel guilty and feel like I had to do it. So I did, and I did not feel very good about it. I'm like, I can't do this, and so I left.
She ended up on Fulton Industrial, where this time a stranger offered her a place to stay.
Then I was doing the same thing that I was doing all night, and I'm like, I can't do this. So I left again. Let's do this dirty laundry, this dirty laundry.
Did you ever think about calling your mom in all of this?
I did, but I didn't want anyone to think I was weak. And when I did try to call, I get hands put on me, and I get things thrown at me.
So when again she had the strength to leave, instead of home, she found herself on Candler Road.
This is when I met my rapist, and he's really nice at first.
Mr. Bailey is charged with 1 count of rape and 1 count of battery.
The man accused of raping Kayleigh, Rubio Bailey, has pleaded not guilty. This was Assistant DA Tory Thomas at his bond hearing.
But what's really concerning is that this victim has a number of developmental disabilities, and it seems that the defendant has preyed on that and taken advantage of that.
The judge denied Bailey's bond.
I think people are great people, and then they show me they're not. And then they want me to forgive them, like everything is supposed to be okay. In this really depressed place right now. And I don't really know how to get out of it. Dirty laundry, this dirty laundry.
I'm here at Six Flags because I want to introduce you to Jacob. I am told for him, this is a pretty special place.
Goliath, Twisted Cyclone.
Maybe the rides are a release. Jacob has a long list of behavioral disabilities. He's been to 11 different schools in 10 years and always seems ready for a fight. But his father, Chad, says there's just something about the rush of these rides.
As soon as we roll through the gates and we're headed to that first coaster, and we are just screaming our heads off, and I look at his face and it is drama-free. It's just me having time with my son.
Breaking things outside and trying to break down the door to come inside.
But earlier this year, that drama got to be too much. There were serious safety issues. I'll skip to the end. His parents gave up custody. Jacob is now in Southwest Georgia at a group home, his care controlled by DFACS. And his parents say there's really only one reason why: mental health parity.
You know, you get those hidden disabilities, the ones you can't see, the poor executive function skills, the ADHD, the autism. You do have to fight harder, I feel, to get coverage for those. Yeah, if he had cancer, you'd be down at
diabetes.
We'd be down at CHOA getting top-notch medical care for as long as he needed.
Amy and Chad Austin know a lot about health insurance. He works for a school district, so they're covered under the state's health benefit plan. Their son has been in therapy since he was a toddler. Occupational, speech, and behavioral.
You can't even make an appointment without calling the insurance company first and getting a code that says it's okay, and then you get 20 visits.
Set number.
Hopefully you're fine at the end of those 20 visits.
Amy herself is a children's occupational therapist. She works all day with children who have intense needs, but that didn't make navigating the system any easier.
The burden of behavioral and mental health conditions in children and adolescents are significant, and they're growing.
In fact, according to Dr. Daniel Salinas of Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, in the past 5 years, that burden has shot up more than 130%.
Some kids present to us with severe aggression.
Stop! Dr. Salinas is talking about children like this boy, Bradley.
And these are kids that may have a condition where once they get anxious and the anxiety builds and they spiral.
The hospital's data shows transferring a kid with a behavioral or mental health need takes 3.5 times longer than transferring one with a medical problem like severe burns.
There may not be a place yet that can accept them because they don't have the special expertise, but developing that expertise in these facilities sometimes comes down to parity.
Just as frustrating, of the patients transferred to a psychiatric setting last year, more than 10% were back in the ER with another crisis within a month.
When you say mental health parity, people's eyes kind of glaze over.
That's Eve Burt, the executive director of the mental health program at the Carter Center. She says not all insurance companies are required to provide coverage for mental health. But if they do, they must provide it at the same level as physical care. And in the case of Medicaid, access to care is a mandate. It sounds like we're not meeting that mandate.
We have no transparency and we're not enforcing it. People continue to have to pay much more out of pocket for their mental health treatment. People are unable to get or identify providers.
He needs to marinate in therapy where everything's a teachable moment, but how do you get him into a place like that?
Fearing their son would lose access to treatment, Jacob's parents pressed charges for things like destruction of property, theft, and use of drugs and alcohol. The hope was the juvenile court judge would order him to therapy instead of jail. But when they started down that road, they had no idea it would come with a catch.
You got to give up custody. And we're like, I'm miffed about that. She's livid over it.
I'm furious.
I can't believe. Nobody pays attention until there's a crisis.
911. You guys have been out here on a couple of previous occasions. It's about to get out of hand.
And then in the crisis, people go, well, why didn't you get help before that? Well, nobody was listening before that.
Let's pause and think about that. We want the state to provide better care for these children, but it's the state's own health care plan that wanted to deny coverage for Jacob. But that means that everybody there in that circle knows that they've just removed custody for the sole purpose of getting him care.
Yes.
That's a tough concept for Jacob, a teenager who doesn't know what to do with his emotions, but does know he loves his parents. And he needs to know that he is loved too.
He broke down completely. He sobbed. He cried and cried and cried and cried. And he's like, does this mean you don't want me anymore?
It is an emotional roller coaster kids just shouldn't have to endure.
Why is Georgia forcing families to do this? This to me is a dirty little secret. Why is it, if the money is there, why are we forcing parents to give up custody?
He's a really neat kid, and I miss that.
It's very quiet. It's just weird being in here with it kind of empty.
For years, we watched as Anna and Ava Bullard spoke before legislative committees and lobbied in the halls.
But I kept coming, and Ava kept coming with me.
I'm Ava Bullard. And
they kept coming, kept telling their story, hoping lawmakers would listen. Ironic, since as a baby, Ava's mom thought her daughter was deaf. She would cry at odd times and didn't seem to respond to sounds. But she's not deaf.
No. No, she can hear. I can hear.
It wasn't a hearing impairment, it was autism.
She was nonverbal. She had no skills whatsoever when she was 2.5, 3 years old. So no feeding skills, play skills. The shocking part was that none of the services that were prescribed by the physician were covered in the state of Georgia by insurance or by Medicaid.
Determined to help, they maxed out their credit cards. Their families chipped in too, hoping ABA, applied behavioral analysis, would make a difference. After a few weeks, the progress was obvious. What was her first word?
Cheeto? Cheeto, I think it was Cheeto.
We're basically figuring out the function. Why is this person doing the behavior that they're doing?
That's ABA-trained therapist Lindsay Jones. She says it is an important tool to help children and their parents find healthy ways to communicate before frustration turns to aggression. Stop!
Sometimes the youth either get too big and their aggression becomes dangerous. I think that's the times that we see the parents where they feel overwhelmed and they just can't handle it.
And we know when that happens, children are more likely to be abandoned.
Thank you for listening today.
That's why Anna and Ava wanted a law to require commercial insurance and Medicaid cover ABA and other therapies for children with autism. It took 7 years.
The law was signed by Governor Deal right there.
We're going to do something about that today.
Not only did Georgia mandate insurance providers cover therapies for children with autism, it set a high Medicaid reimbursement rate compared to other states.
So that has brought a lot of providers here to Georgia.
It is proof that if you properly fund a program, providers willing to deliver it will come.
To stop. And I'm gonna need you to get your hands on my face.
Child welfare advocates say it is time to take the same approach to other parts of our behavioral health care system, and we can't wait 7 years to do it.
If we don't address the parity issue, then we're going to continue to struggle.
Gwen Skinner is the vice president of operations for Devereaux, a psychiatric residential treatment facility in Metro Atlanta.
Devereaux serves children with significant emotional disturbance.
It is one of the few facilities that will work with children struggling with aggressive tendencies, another gap in our behavioral health care system.
It's a specialized service, and so you have to accept that it's going to cost more.
It may cost more, but she says Georgia doesn't pay more, forcing her facility and others to take patients from states that do reimburse at higher rates. For example, Georgia pays about $2,800 for a child to receive a week of treatment at Devereaux. Florida will pay $4,200.
The providers are beginning to take more and more out-of-state youth in order to remain financially viable. And so that means Georgia youth, when they have those needs, there's nowhere to go.
She says that gap leads to problems with access and workforce. According to Voices for Georgia's Children, there's a shortage of mental health professionals in almost every county. Nearly half don't even have a single full-time psychiatrist or psychologist. That's why Skinner jumped at the opportunity to serve on the state's Behavioral Health Reform and Innovation Commission.
My first thought was, I want to be a part of that. But then my second thought was, I hope it's not going to be just another commission that makes recommendations and doesn't result in sustainable change.
She hasn't seen that change yet, but believes the next legislative session will be different.
I think it was right here.
Anna and Ava warn not everyone will want to spend the money.
I'll never forget one of the legislators looked at me and he said, "It's not personal." And I thought, it's very personal. It's very, very personal.
According to Georgia's Insurance Commission, Ava's law has increased monthly insurance premiums by 97 cents.
I am Ava Camille Bullard and I'm 8 years old.
But Ava says, look at what that dollar has done for her.
I wouldn't be where I am today at all.
From a toddler that couldn't talk to a senior at Tombstone High School, a cheerleader at the top of her class as a dual enrollment student at Georgia Southern.
We just didn't give up.
You just kept coming back.
Kept coming back. I think they were shocked every time, a lot. So what are we going to do next?
As Georgia looks at how how to help those children with severe emotional disturbances, the Bullards hope their story offers some hope that change can happen if you're willing to fight. When I finally had the chance to sit down and talk with Sheldon's mom, she asked, "How long do you scream when no one is listening?" Diana Elliott admits she did something drastic, but she says she didn't abandon her son here at Grady Hospital. She says she left him with a note.
It said, "My name is Sheldon Lennon Jr.," and it said his birthday.
And the note had a simple message: "My mom needs help." The problem is, nobody ever found that note, and Sheldon, who has Down syndrome, is nonverbal.
I didn't take into account he could drop the letter, roll him out of the door, roll him out in the cold.
So Sheldon's mom waited nervously in a motel room with her 3 other children for an entire week.
I'm thinking, oh, they're gonna call me, they're gonna see she need help, and they're gonna come help.
Her children grew restless, wondering what was going on. When did you finally just come out and say, "I left him there"?
I still have not been able to say that. I still have not been able to say that. Maybe that's in my mind. I didn't look at it like I was leaving them, but I know I left him. I know it. I didn't leave him. I didn't want to leave him forever. I just wanted help.
There's something fundamentally wrong with the system that lets that happen.
Yet it's the system we have.
It is the system we have.
But it is the system Georgia's leaders in both the House and Senate say they are committed to fix.
I think this is just a personal issue for everybody. They just don't know it yet.
Never did I want my child to leave my home. I just wanted help.
We shared our stories of systemic gaps and heartbreak leading to child abandonment.
We're going to talk about our anger warning signs.
Workforce shortages, mental health parity, the denial of medically necessary services. Are those fair issues to bring before lawmakers and say, fix this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're using state appropriated dollars to fund a lot of these programs. And it's certainly, those are proper questions to ask. Those are proper conversations to have.
We have to identify the barriers and then be prepared to knock those barriers down.
We traveled to Ohio, where Diana Elliott is now living near her children. Diana, hi! To find out where that wrecking ball should start.
That was at my modeling agency.
Diana says when she moved her children to Georgia to break into the movie biz, she had no idea services for children with special needs varied by state. Her first barrier, the school.
You would have had 22 kids in the classroom. Sheldon's never had that setting. That was making my paranoia go off so much. I was like, I don't know that he'll be okay in that setting.
So Diana kept him home, but that's when she ran into another wall. In Ohio, for a few hours each week, someone would come in and watch Sheldon.
Where you can get a moment to yourself.
Without that break, Diana says it was impossible to go to auditions or get a job. No job, no credit, no money for rent.
I don't even want to relive that.
When money for a motel ran out, they went to the airport for shelter.
That was bad. Like literally, our suitcases, we're on the benches and we're sleeping in the airport.
While Diana's kids did their best to go with the flow, Sheldon struggled with the change and with his vision.
He has a nystagmus, so when we're looking at still pictures, he's looking at a picture that's moving like this.
If a space is too open or too high, he gets scared. Stairs are a challenge.
That's when he throws his tantrum and he gets really aggressive. And a couple of times he didn't pull my hair out.
And there was one more big barrier.
I like to call myself a phoenix.
Diana needed help too. Since childhood, she has struggled with PTSD, anxiety, and depression.
I also received mental health benefits as well, because I grew up in foster care, and there's a whole lot in my jacket where I can be cuckoo, but you know, I use it as strength.
But strength has its limits. According to data provided by DFACS, the state takes custody of about 650 children a year because of the parents' mental health or substance abuse.
Take a left.
For Diana, the breaking point was an abusive relationship. She escaped, moving her family back into a motel, but Sheldon refused to go inside.
He fought, and he fought. But I don't know, that day, I didn't have any more fighting in me.
So instead of forcing him inside yet one more motel room, she left him for the moment somewhere she thought he would be safe.
I treated you unkindly.
Back in Ohio, 2 years later,
so we have beds coming soon.
Diana and her children say they have more family support and access to things Sheldon needs.
There's no one more important to me.
She says she has apologized to him over and over in song, hugs, and simply time together. From craft projects to his 16th birthday celebration, their home is humble, yet beauty is everywhere.
I don't want all of this to be for nothing.
While police never found Diana's note, lawmakers say they have heard her message.
This is not going to be a one-session fix to this system. This is going to be a multi-year effort. Have a little bit of patience because this is a big problem. Government don't do well with tough problems, but we're going to do well with this one.
The legislation championed by the late House Speaker David Ralston passed unanimously in both the House and Senate. But even now, mental health professionals say our state lacks the workers and the facilities needed. Lawmakers will now work on a new plan to figure out how to fix that and present it in January during the 2026 legislative session.